Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the InnerFight podcast. My name is Marcus Smith. I'm the host of the show, and I appreciate you guys being here today. I appreciate every time you come and listen to the show, whether it's the 5-minute shows that we put out on a Monday, or whether it's these longer shows that I do actually always try and keep under an hour. I know it looks like there's more than an hour in today's show. That's because the conversation was so good, and I basically cut it at an hour, but there's the intro and there's some announcements, so it looks like it's a little bit longer. But I do appreciate all of you guys. If you're enjoying this show, please do hop over to the platform that you listen to it on, rate it, review it, share it with someone. And if you don't, then just stop listening. That's fine too. But don't stop listening, but do stop listening. Who knows? But please, the way that the show grows and the way that we can help other people is by you guys sharing the show. So if you do feel inclined to share it, then please do so. My guest today was introduced to me by a long time supporter of the show and a long-term friend of mine personally and of InnerFight. Of course, none other than the beautiful Arij said to me quite a while back, at the back end of last year, I have a beautiful friend who I think you'll have a fantastic conversation with. When someone says that to me, I know it's going to be great. Of course, good things take time, and it took us a few weeks to put this or to lock this guest in. I've been away, they've been busy, but today I got to talk to them. We talk about so many different things. We talk about cultural differences, sensitivities, understanding your past, understanding your future, dealing with illness, dealing with change. And of course, all of this is rooted in dealing with mindset. And ultimately, as the title suggests, understanding how just simply who you are, and of course, to be you. I love this conversation. I love this human being, the way that she put herself over. It was insanely inspiring for me. As you can probably tell, the energy I have in my voice just introducing today's guest. And as I say towards the end of the show, and I really mean it, I'm absolutely committed to following today's guest's journey and getting her back when she's ready to come back. I probably should have asked her before we started recording, but I didn't ask her until the end if she'd ever done a podcast before, and she hadn't. I also didn't give her my normal warning that if I ask a question that you're not comfortable to answer, just don't bother answering and I'll ask you another one, which I give to all the guests. And then A, I don't have to edit it, and B, it's not comfortable. So given those two things, she did a fantastic job for us. This week's show announcements. What have we got for you? We have probably 1 week late. I'm a little bit late to the party on this, and this is the first time we've actually done it, but I want to acknowledge our members of the month for January. We have 6 members of the month to acknowledge. Our member of the month from the gym is Mo. Our member of the month from our youth program is Jemana. Our member of the month from our UAE-based endurance section is Craig. From our ladies run club is Megan. There's 6. From our Ireland InnerFight Endurance is Paul. And from our New Zealand InnerFight Endurance is Blake. Congratulations to all of our members of the month. Second point. Yes, you might see it if you're watching the video version. I have, based on Tom Walker buying Remarkable, I then got absolutely drilled with Remarkable ads, and I've finally conceded to getting Remarkable. I want to know who's got Remarkable, and this is an important show announcement, obviously. Who's got Remarkable? How are you using it? And what can you teach me? We'll exchange secrets. Not that I have that many, but I'm not selling this very well. We'll exchange practices, tricks, secrets, and techniques. How can you get the most out of it? This week's show notes or this week's announcements are being read from Remarkable. Anyway, I will continue. This week is testing week here at the gym, and we have seen some incredible results. We last did testing week about 12 weeks ago, so sort of November time. Build a program, a fitness program that we hope makes people stronger and fitter, and we're seeing some really fantastic results. So congratulations to everyone who's been through Intestine Week and who's committed to the program over the last 12 weeks. You are seeing some great results. We're very happy for you. It's not the program. Well, it is partially the program, but it's definitely your hard work that you've put in there. Next week in the class program, we're actually mixing things up a little bit. We're going into kind of like a fun week where every day is quite a little bit different. Some days are very hard. Some days are hard. So very hard to not very hard to very hard. No, there's not a day that's not very hard. It's a little bit more fun, a little bit less structured before we then go into another 6-week block, which also takes us through the open time as well. If you're interested more to hear about how we structure the class program, give us a shout or speak to one of the coaches. They would be absolutely delighted to talk about the structure of the class program, why we put it together, how we put it together. Other things that we have been talking to people about and doing recently, which may be interesting to you, is we are actually putting, or have put together in the past since about 2015, a lot of different kind of corporate team building days. And on the back of our Coaches Summit, probably no surprise, we've had a few different inquiries on that as well. So if your company, I guess this is an advert in a way as well as an announcement. If your company, if you want some corporate team building, bring people together, host, facilitate, provoke different conversations with your team members to hopefully get them to come closer to each other, please do reach out, give us a shout. It's something that we do. We bespoke it. There's no program. We're not going to send you a big PDF. We're going to give you a shout. We're going to listen to what's going on in your organization, maybe some potential problems that you have, and then we'll put together maybe 2 hours, maybe 6 or 8 hours, or maybe we'll do a full 24 hours, show no weakness like we did for the guys at House and House, which if you're in the UK, you might have seen that on BBC Three. Yeah. We made it on BBC Three, making people bury each other alive in the middle of the desert in Al Qudra. It's pretty cool. That is corporate team building. What's going on in the next week? Aside from that fun week in the gym, we have quite a decent race. The Ironman brand 70.3 is down in Oman, where we have a bunch of athletes racing next weekend. It's going to be super cool. It's great for Tom and I as well. We're taking Ben Graham down there for a few days mountain biking before. If you're in Oman next week, give us a shout or come down and support the athletes. Big shout out to all of those guys as well. That is it for this week's show announcements. I'll close down my remarkable and crack on with the show. This is episode number 876 of the InnerFight podcast. Be you with Sammia Dougman. No matter where you are in the world, thanks for listening to the InnerFight podcast. Let's jump into today's show. Here we go. This, I feel like our 30-minute intro or get to know each other. We've covered so many things. Sammia, you have an incredible story. I've just called you the best PR person in the world. Thank you for that. Let's start at the start. Give us a little bit of your background. Where are you from? We've got a lot of stuff to tell. We'll try and keep it under an hour, but start at the start for us.
Okay. So I'm half-half. My name's Sammia. A lot of people ask, well, where's the name from? But you've got a British accent, but, we can't quite work out what's going on here. Are you British? My story is my dad's from Libya. My mum's English. I grew up in Libya, in the desert, not in central Tripoli. I grew up on the outskirts, in the middle of the desert, very sort of Bedouin area of Libya. I stayed there till the age of 15, so I went to an Arabic school up until the age of 15, and then my parents decided it was time to move to the UK and go to a British school. So you can imagine, the transition from like Arabic curriculum, very traditional Libyan school, to have you got a pony and do you play polo and what sports that you get. I'd never done sport in my life because Libyan school is quite traditional. Girls didn't do sport at that time, right? So then I went from that to having to play hockey and rounders and things that I'd never heard of before in like -2, and so it's a huge culture shock. But I ended up staying sort of at school to do my GCSEs and A-levels. Stayed in the UK to do my university degree as well. So that was kind of my stretch where I lived in the UK and then went back to Libya for visits here and there, because my parents still live in Libya even after sort of all the trouble in 2011. They stayed out there.
Wow.
And then I moved to London, got my first job, graduated from uni, and I was like, yeah, I want to move to London, and be a London girl and experience the city. And my dad was like, you're crazy, It's like, you need to come back home and get a job in Libya and do, you're supposed to just stay there to finish uni and then come back home. And I was like, you know what, I want to do this on my own, Dad. I want to move to London and give it a try. And he was like, in Arab culture, that's kind of a difficult thing for a parent to accept that, as a woman, that I was just going to stay in the UK and live in London on my own. And my dad was like, okay, well, you're completely on your own then, go off and do it. And I did. So started my first job and then eventually ended up in Dubai 13 years ago. So yeah.
The Dubai trap.
The Dubai trap, yeah, but it's the biggest blessing,
Sure.
Especially when you're from two different worlds, it's the perfect place. So I couldn't imagine being anywhere else.
What's ringing in my mind, and it, folks, you have to excuse me, but we had a chat before, and then I went to the bathroom, and I thought of a title for this show. I like to title every show because I think it lets the listener know exactly what's happening. And I had it in my mind, and now I'm actually going to use it after that intro you've just given. And it's called Be You, which in the world that we live in now is quite unique.
Very true.
Now, you've come from, we spoke about it before, but it's a crazy sort of merge of so many different things. I want to ask you, when was the first time you realized or what's your first recollection of having your mum from one country and your dad from quite a different country, English, Arab, England, and Libya? What's your first memory of that?
Oof. I think one that sticks in my mind is riding a bike, as simple as that sounds. So where I grew up, girls didn't ride bikes. You just never go out in the street and see a girl on a bike, right? Yeah. It's just not a done thing. And my dad's a pilot, so he traveled a lot, and he comes home one day with this bike. He'd done a flight to Europe, and he was like, oh, I've got you this bike. And at the back of my mind, I was thinking, well, where am I going to go? Like, where am I going to ride this bike? Even as a child, I must have been about 10, I think. Yeah. But I knew that it wasn't a place where I could get on a bike. And my mum was like, no, you will ride a bike and you go out there and, show the kids that you can do what you want. We've told you it's okay, so go out and do it. So I think when I went out on my bike, as sort of simple as that sounds, that was the start of me maybe breaking barriers, doing things that other kids weren't doing and realizing that I was different. Things like Halloween, simple thing like Halloween. My mum will be like, right, what are you dressing up as for Halloween this year? And I'm like, Mum, where we lived in Brega, it's 100% Libyan. There wasn't that many expats. And you want me to dress in like a fairy costume or whatever and go out trick-or-treating, I'm probably going to get beaten up. But my parents did an amazing job of making sure that I understood that I belonged to two different cultures, and giving me that kind of the confidence, to say, well, yeah, you will be that Arab kid that goes out trick-or-treating, as strange as that might sound, and you will be that Arab kid that gets on a bike when no one else is riding a bike. But that gave me an amazing foundation as a kid, right?
How did it feel? Like,
petrifying at the beginning.
Really?
Yeah. I do recall, not such a nice story, but I do recall having stones thrown at me one Halloween by other kids, going, well, you're Muslim, you can't celebrate Halloween, and they were throwing stones at me and stuff. But so there was times where it was a little bit scary, but then it became cool to be different. And I felt more and more empowered by my parents to be me, and to do what felt comfortable for me. So I learned to adapt, and that's how I kind of just became a bit rebellious, I guess, and just a bit different. But then I never really fit into either world. I'm never, when I'm with my British friends, I'm the Arab, When I'm with my Arab friends, I'm the brick because I'm different.
Yeah.
So I think, especially when you're from two completely different cultures, you have to get to a place where you're completely comfortable in your own skin and you're not trying to be more one or the other, you know?
That must be quite easy to say now because you are obviously super comfortable and you've been through all that you've been through. But I have those two images in my mind. I have a 10-year-old girl on a new bike, which in, I guess, the Western culture and a little bit more now, maybe Middle Eastern culture as well, is a huge day when you get your first bike.
Yeah.
Like folks that are listening can probably, like, we've created this image in their mind. And okay, we're petrified to ride it. Why? Yeah. Because we don't want to fall off, and that's failure. But you're actually scared because the culture and the society, that's just not normal.
Yeah, exactly.
That must be, and then obviously Halloween as well. It's funny, again, my mind's racing, the amount of things that probably you didn't get that your mother got, but then there's two sides to it. But when that feeling of being scared, it soon becomes, I'm a little bit special.
Correct.
Talk to us about that. Like, and do you leverage it?
100%. 100%. And switch between the two, whatever works better for me at the time.
Really?
So yeah, but I think where I really felt the difference is when I moved to the UK. That's when I felt I was special.
Yeah.
In Libya, I felt, yes, I was different, more different than special.
Yeah.
And then when I moved to the UK at the age of 15, I realized that my whole world in Libya and my experience of life and travel and even simple things like food, right? And then I come to an English school where lunch is like mashed potatoes and pie, right? I realized that my life is really different and I felt special, you know, and all my teachers were like, wow, you're so unique, you know, you studied in Arabic and now here you are like trying to learn, you know, Macbeth and everything in English and Shakespeare and stuff. How are you doing that? And I just felt different and special and unique. And so I think that was the first time I really felt that, is when I moved to an English school and felt that my life was, I'd experienced so much even as a child, that I was different to the average 15-year-old in the UK at school. And I don't mean that in a negative or positive way. It's just my life experience was huge, you know, in comparison to a 15-year-old in the UK that had maybe grown up in that area, stayed in that area, maybe never traveled or didn't even know where Libya was. I mean, none of the kids, they were like, where are you from? And I said, Libya. And they were like, no idea what you're talking about.
How did that make you feel? Like being, again, it's almost like these different situations. You've been the odd one out, but you've gone back to your mother's home country and you're bringing half of your father's heritage with you as well. Yeah.
Totally confusing. Totally confusing because, you know, Arab culture, especially for young girls, we're quite conservative. You know, it's like, again, I go back to the sports comment that I made and trying to adapt to a whole new way of life in an English school that's 100% British. It's very difficult. Not to mention studying subjects in English when I'd been doing it in Arabic all my life and trying to sort of convert.
How was your English at that point?
Oh, same as always. I mean, my mum, bless her heart, did an amazing job of, like, you know, she was like, well, you're half English, then you can speak properly, you know. So
you've actually got quite a posh English accent now.
It's the school.
You work on that.
It's the school, because people from Cumbria don't speak like that where I was born. But so
Did you rock out with an Arab accent?
I didn't actually. Again, that was my mum, you know, because if I'd say things like, I want water, my mum would be like, it's water. Really? And you say please and you say thank. But even simple things like that. I wouldn't say please and thank you to my grandma in Libya. Right. I just open her fridge and eat whatever's in there and help myself because that's our culture, right? We don't say. And then when I went to the UK, you say please and thank you for everything. Like at the end of every sentence, you're saying thank you, or you're apologizing, or you're saying please, or it's like continuous, you know? And I think, the big difference, I think, between me and the average 15-year-old was confidence. Like I felt that at school. When I went to English, when I went to school in England, I was like, I feel a lot more confident in my own skin and who I am, and you know, just different experience.
It could have gone a lot the other way though, right?
Yeah.
Why do you think it played out so positively for you?
A couple of things. I think my parents knew that if we went into a certain type of school in the UK, we were just going to get beaten up.
Right.
Yeah, they knew. They were like, these kids are coming fresh out of Libya, you know, going to a school in the UK. It's just, they're going to get their heads kicked in, for sure. So my parents were very selective in the school that we went to, and I think made sure that we were in a place where we would sort of be looked after, and you know, they understood that we were a bit different, my siblings and I, that were a bit different, and everyone made a huge effort to, you know,
That's
understand.
Nice.
Yeah, a bit more. So I think that was the first thing. And the second thing is probably going back to that point of being like resilient, rebellious, fearless, you know, from a very young age, because that 10-year-old's out on a bike and going against the grain sort of very early on. So I was kind of fearless, I suppose, at that age, feeling a bit like, you know what, it might be really uncomfortable at the beginning, and I am different. Of course I am, but I know that I'll find my way, sort of thing, and I did.
Do you think, like, resilience is an interesting thing? We, later in life, we question how to build it, and some people have even made livelihoods out of teaching people how to become resilient. You were brought up in an environment that was, as you said, it was the Bedouin sort of style.
Yeah.
When did you realize that was sort of like, that was teaching you? You'd built this, because you've built your resilience in those early years, haven't you? Is there a point where, or do you just look back now and go, that's why that happened and that's why that happened?
I can't pinpoint, you know, when I felt like, oh, this happened because of this, or I now feel this way because of this. But I think I noticed it most when I was with my Western friends. Right. Now I'm probably going to get a lot of stick for this, but
are you calling them all soft?
Maybe a little bit. But I think maybe the average person in that part of the world, their definition of a problem is very different.
It's not a problem at all. I agree with you.
It's like, you know, I can't leave the house today because my hair's too flat, or, you know, I'm feeling a bit overweight, so I don't want to go out, and that took me some time to understand, because growing up in Libya, and especially after everything that's happened in Libya, it's like my definition of a problem, or my tolerance for smaller problems. I shouldn't say, I know everybody sees their problem as a problem, but let's just say that, you know, for me, that's when I realized it would be when I'm in a crowd like that and we'd be talking and everyone would react in that way. Well, oh, this is terrible, you know, gosh, how could this happen? And I'd be like, it's no biggie, just get up and start again, you know, just crack on with life. Okay, whatever, this happened, lose your job, whatever. It's, you know, in the Middle East, people are losing homes, and you know, and it's just, you soon feel that there's that difference in mentality and in coping with problems, and how you look at things and how you define a problem. So I
it's an interesting one, isn't it? I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and he was like, is it me or are people becoming weak?
Yes.
Do you have a similar conversation with yourself?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's like, but I think that, well, maybe the Marcus I want to think I am or want to become always tries to be empathetic towards that person, and to try and understand why they see that, you know, their hair's not whatever you just said. I don't get too much into hair, but, you know, why are they feeling that that's the end of the world? Whereas you know, and it's quite, sometimes you feel maybe you're being a bit self-righteous as well. Like, I've just come from Libya, guys. Calm down.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But my question is, are we a bit soft?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that.
I mean, I'm trying not to say that, but yes, the honest truth is I do feel that way. I think society as a whole, everyone is just a bit soft nowadays.
Why do you think that's happened? I'm asking you to fix all the world's problems.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, this is not what I was expecting today. I should have come prepared. But I just think it gets a lot of attention, you know? It's these smaller problems, or let's say these problems which you think are huge, by getting attention from society, especially on social media, and creating that culture of, you know, look at me, this has happened in my life, and I'm going to film every moment of it and share it on my, you know, platform. I can't relate to that. I can't.
Yeah, you're the hardest guest. I told you this before. You're the hardest guest I've ever been able to research.
Yeah. See, there you go.
Have you done that on purpose?
Yes.
Why?
I'm an 80s kid. Like, I'm not interested in sharing my life on social media platforms.
Really?
But, you know, no, it's not intentional, but, you know, it's...
Do you use social media?
I mean, I do.
Yeah.
But my friends will tell you, the people who follow me have to check in time to time to see that I'm actually alive.
Really?
You know, I had a friend from school who actually thought I still lived in Cumbria where I went to school. And I mean, it's a long time since I was at school.
Or were they on your MySpace page or something?
Yeah, they're like, Sammia, you're still on MySpace.
Friends Reunited.
Yeah. So I just never, I've never had sort of that pull to share, right? And it's funny, actually, we're talking about this now, because now I am going through something that I really feel I should be sharing.
Yeah.
And if I don't, I'm not doing myself or the community justice by not sharing. So
we'll come to that.
Yeah.
But isn't that because of the way that we communicate and because of the power of social media? You're in a unique position, but you've always been in a unique position because you're half English, half Libyan. You've got a beautiful posh accent, but can swear at me in Arabic.
Yeah.
So you've always had a strong position.
I think also there's an element of when you grow up in the Arab world, sharing too much of your private life is not something that's encouraged. You know, it's like, keep your business to yourself. So I think that maybe that subconsciously, that probably has something to do with it, because you're like, well, you know, I shouldn't be really sharing what I'm doing with everybody, and I shouldn't be telling people that this is where I am and this is what I'm doing, and I shouldn't boast, and I should stay humble, and I should. So you like just go through this, like, and you're like, just cut it, no need, just forget it.
So what do you do with the extra 5 hours in a day that normal people spend on social media?
Look at other people's social media.
So you're on social media.
I'm that creep that's looking through everybody else's stories, going, oh yeah, but not doing any of it myself.
Really?
And going, oh, that's amazing that she did this and that this person did this, and you know, and like go to social media for any research I want to do. And I'm like, oh yeah. I mean, but this is recent. That's why I can feel the shift now, is that, you know, by remaining sort of in this private sort of like cloud, I'm not really doing anyone justice.
Do you think that, I mean, so if we were to try and put it in a little bit of a box, your strategy, or what you're comfortable with, your strategy has been to use social media for your own benefit, to find information out about people, whether it's news, no matter what it is. But maybe because of subconscious behavior, you haven't felt like being prevalent on social media or sharing a lot of your life. Yeah. So it still plays a big part. But do you think there's something, I'm just trying to...
Something deeper?
Yeah.
Actually, I've just thought of something when you said that. Because being half English, and I mean, when I lived in Libya, we'd go back to the UK every holiday, like for my mum to see, so we could see our English cousins, and I'd go back for Easter or Christmas or whatever it was. So we were very privileged in Libya, and where I grew up specifically, there were a lot of kids that didn't have that privilege. So I would be in the UK buying the latest whatever. My brothers were buying PlayStations and I'm like in my, Nike trainers and whatever. But kids weren't wearing that in Brega. Life was very simple. It was a Bedouin lifestyle, as I mentioned. So my parents were always like, don't show off. Don't wear these things when you go and play with other kids. Don't be telling anyone you have a PlayStation, and don't do this and don't do that. So it was always about trying to, I wouldn't say fit in, but just not making sure we didn't make anyone feel uncomfortable. So I almost feel like social media is a bit braggy.
Yeah.
So, and that doesn't feel comfortable for me.
So if I was to challenge you to, you can pick the platform, TikTok, Snapchat, MySpace, Friends Reunited, all of them, and document your journey and one of the things that we're going to talk about, that would make you feel incredibly uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, terrible. I mean, I've just started doing it and it's literally killing my soul.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the feeling?
Cringe.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I think, especially, and I suppose we'll get onto it with what I'm going through, I'm in a different position to many other people who are going through this same journey. So I almost feel it's a fine line between helping people and making people feel bad because they don't feel that way. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
So I feel a bit responsible when I shouldn't. I'm probably thinking way too deep into this, right? Because I should think, well, I want to talk about my journey. I'm going to share it with whoever sort of is interested and wants to see what I'm doing and learn from what I'm doing and not think too deeply into it. But then I think, okay, well, what about people who are going to look at that and be like, oh, it's all right for her because she's not suffering. And, so I have this kind of mental battle where I'm thinking about how I'm affecting people way too much, probably. That's my mom's side.
I was going to say.
She's emotional. It's my mom.
Really?
Yeah. She's
Lots
just
of emotion on your mum's side.
Huge empath. Yeah. She's just cries at everything, and so it's, yeah.
And dad's the polar opposite? Or?
Complete opposite.
Yeah.
Like a building could blow up behind my dad and he'll just carry on walking and grab his coffee. He's solid.
Really?
Absolutely solid. Nothing can shake my dad.
Did you receive a lot of open love from him when you were younger?
Yes, a lot.
Despite his ability to have a building blow up?
Yep.
But as his daughter, you were still...
Yes, still always felt like number one, but my dad was also tough. He was also like, well, you need to move. When I left the UK, left Libya to go to the UK, my dad explained to me exactly why at the age of 15, because I couldn't understand. Like, I have my friends here. I love my life. I'm going to the beach. Life's amazing. Why do I want to move to Cumbria? No offense. But, my mom's from Carlisle and it's not the most happening city. I'm like, why do I want to move there? And my dad was like, you don't understand today the privilege that you have. You're an Arab with a British passport. You don't understand what that means. Yeah. But he's like, and add to that you're going to be educated in the United Kingdom and have choices, Sammia. You will have choices. Whereas maybe the average Libyan would not have those choices, right? And at the time, I was like, my dad's just ruining my life, sending me to the UK and taking me away from my friends. But now that I'm older, I realize why my dad was so tough with me, and he was like, you've got to go out there and do this. You've got to finish your degree. You've got to do this. You've got to do that. And then you can choose where you want to live in the world. Yeah. You can choose where you want to work. You have choice. And that word choice is the biggest gift that many people from my part of the world do not have. Because there are people in Libya who are, educated, have so much talent and so much potential. But if you have a Libyan passport, it's very difficult. Yeah. It's very difficult to have choice, to get up and leave, to find a job, to go somewhere else. So I think my dad was definitely very loving, but tough.
But there must be two things when you see him now, when you think of him now. One is an immense amount of gratitude from your side.
Yep.
In that tough love. Yeah. And the second thing I can imagine from what I've heard so far from your story is how proud he must be of what you've made of it all.
Oh, I hope so.
Does he tell you?
All the time.
Does he?
All the time.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, all the time. But you know, you're going to make me emotional saying that.
No, I think
I see it obviously now that I'm older. You know, I understand what he could see and what he was trying to do and the choice he was trying. Like a funny little story, I'll keep it brief, but when I was 18, I'd finished my A-levels. I went back to Libya, and I had pressure from my, family and friends. It's okay, it's time to get married. You know, you're 18, you've done your degree. So now it's time to settle down. And I felt pressured, so I was like, okay, I'm in. And cut a long story short, I went for, let's say, a traditional arrangement of, you help me select someone and, we go through all of that. And I thought my dad would be over the moon because then I ticked all the boxes. I was educated abroad. I did everything I was supposed to do. I came back home. Now I'm going to get engaged and everyone can be really proud of me because I'm, going to get married. And my dad was like, absolutely no chance. My dad, what are you talking about? You're 18 years old and stuff. And I was like, oh, but Dad, I want to get married and stuff. And he gave me a completely different response and reaction, which was shocking at that age. But he was like, look, we'll make a deal. Go to uni for a month. If you hate it, you can come back and get married.
Right.
If you love it, then you have your answer. Well, I was there 7 days and I called my dad and I was like, not coming home.
Was he happy with that?
So
he must have been.
Over the moon.
Yeah.
Which again, for an Arab father, that's, it's not, let's say, typical of a Libyan dad. Or
You have siblings? Mm-hmm. Brothers, sisters? 2
brothers and a sister.
Where do you sit in the age?
Eldest. Tough job. The one that pays for everything.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Even now?
It's a tough job. Yeah. You're in it for life.
Really?
So, yeah.
That must have played as well. You're the firstborn.
Yep.
To your father. But, yeah, I mean, he'd seen everything. So his hindsight or his foresight and what he's set you up for is phenomenal.
Yeah. He calls me his co-pilot, so I like that.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
It's really sweet. He's like, I feel now at this age that my dad can really rely on me, that.
That's nice.
Yeah. Which is but he made me that way.
Yeah,
he gave me that strength and stuff and resilience and confidence. And now I feel like I can stand by my dad and support him.
He allowed you to be you and he supported you.
He did.
Which isn't, a lot of people, it can go a different way, can't it? Especially, I mean, you and I are both not parents, so we have to be a little bit careful talking about how we treat children. But you see it a lot. And I deal with it quite a lot where we have kids and is the parent living vicariously through the child? Is that actually what the child wants? Like parents will bring their children here and say, I need my kid to work out. I say, okay, does the kid want to work out?
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't know. I said, well, I think the first point is to ask them. But your dad and your mum, of course, guided you, but let you feel things.
Yeah, but as a parent, how do you find that balance?
I have no
because
idea.
I feel like society today is a bit more, like, oh, let the child say how they feel and let them say what they want to do. And so you need that balance, I guess. But like you said, I'm not a parent. And so I don't know. But yeah, I think my mum and dad did a really good job of giving me that balance where I knew I couldn't mess with my dad. It's not like I could sit here and go, well, if I want to do it, and he'd be like, I don't think so. And I'd be like, okay.
But it sounds like there was this mutual respect as well.
Yeah. And I think that's the beauty of being from 2 cultures because my parents balanced each other out.
Yeah.
If my dad went too hardcore Arab, my mum would be there and being a bit soft, she'd be like, oh, exactly. She'd be like, come on. Yeah. So I think that my parents really balanced each other, in like their sort of parenting techniques, maybe. And we knew how to work it though as well as kids, like we knew how to.
We touched on it before. 5 years ago, you were diagnosed with MS, multiple sclerosis. Talk us through that. How did that all start? And let's go there for a bit and see where we get to.
Well, my mum has MS, and she's had it for about, I think, 12 years now. So I was familiar with the condition, which a lot of people aren't when they're diagnosed. They're like, what is multiple sclerosis? So 5 years ago, I had sort of pins and needles, like a sensation of pins and needles in my legs. And it felt like my legs had gone to sleep permanently, almost, you know, like when you have a dead leg and you're just kind of, I thought, well, this is a bit strange. And I ignored it for about half a day. And then the next morning when I woke up, the numbness kind of and the tingling was all the way up to my stomach. And I was like, okay, this is a bit scary. And this was 3 months into me being married. So it's like I just got married and I was thinking, was I just a bit stressed with the whole, you know, whatever? And I kind of blamed it on different things, as we do when you know that something's happening and you think, oh, it's this or it's that. But then I thought it's abnormal to not be able to. I could feel like the pins and needles, but I was numb. Like, you know, I could feel my foot touching the floor, but I was completely numb. So I wasn't sure how I was walking. I was walking perfectly normal, but it was a strange sensation. Cut a long story short, get to the doctors, see the neurologist, and, you know, have all my tests. And he's like, it's MS. And I was like, but what? You know, like, and you immediately say really naive things to yourself, like, but I'm healthy and, you know, I don't eat junk food and I go to the gym, and how could I have MS? So it was a shock. It was a shock. And I sort of went home for 24 hours. But again, it didn't sort of hit me like a ton of bricks. I kind of accepted it very quickly, which I know sounds strange to a lot of people, but I was like, okay, I've got this. So where do I go from here? How am I going to deal with this? And I went straight into planning mode, which I think is maybe my personality, but I go into problem solving and how can I overcome this? Or what can I do to make my life better so that I live well with MS? So yeah, it took about a day to kind of sink in. I had
Everyone's going, what?
I had my day of kind of sadness, feeling sorry for myself, a few tears, you know, and I was like, but how are they sure, you know? And the doctor was like, you know, spinal fluid doesn't lie. So definitely you've got multiple sclerosis. And MS has a very bad reputation. I mean, the worst thing you can do to your soul is Google multiple sclerosis. If you have it or if you're newly diagnosed, do not do that because it's not good. And the stories are not very encouraging and there's not much hope out there. So I did that for a little bit. And this is where the social media addiction came in. I was like, right, I'm going to go on Instagram and find people who are living well with MS. You know, like, how can I find somebody that gives me a bit of hope that's like, that I can just focus on people living well rather than what could be, the negatives of what could be.
Was that easy to find?
Absolutely not. I mean, I found 4 in the beginning, and that was me going stalk mode, you know, like really YouTube, everything. I was like, I made a lot of effort.
It's quite interesting, isn't it? Because I remember my wife Holly has a rare disease in her knee where behind her knee she grows like benign tumors or something like this.
Oh gosh.
And they cut the whole knee open from mid of your quad down to your shin, and they pull the whole knee joint out and clean it all out. And she said she had to have this operation. The doctor said she had to have this operation. And so she did the same thing, which I think is quite a natural reaction. You sort of go and try and find some information, and there's Facebook groups. And I remember, I can see it so clearly now. We were in the house that we used to live in, and she was literally, after dinner, we sit on the couch and she's looking at her phone, and she's almost looking through her phone and just crying, not making noise, but I could see all these tears coming down her face.
Yeah.
And she obviously was just in this Facebook group, and it was all about things that had gone wrong and horrible pictures of like brutal scars and, like, you know, the big staple marks that you get on. And
I mean, and what does that do to your soul when you're trying to find like,
That's why I asked. And I had a similar conversation with her, and I said, well, I'm sure a lot of people it's gone bad. So there's probably a few people that's gone good as well, but we need to, if we can't find those people, we kind of need to protect that environment and stay away. That's why I asked how much good stuff you found.
I mean, I don't know. Are we just more of a sort of a culture that likes to talk about things when we're in a bad place, or do we like to sort of, share more when we're in a vulnerable space and share less when you're doing well and you're happy? Are there lots of people out there who are doing well but just choose not to talk about it?
I don't know, because you go, what's the phrase? Misery loves company, but what does joy love? Anyway,
loneliness.
So you found a few people in social media.
So I found a few people, and then there was like these. You could feel that I was going through that decision-making process of, do I want to take medication or not? MS doesn't have a cure, but there are drugs out there. A neurologist will immediately want to put you on drugs. But when you ask the question, well, what will this stop? Why am I taking? And they say it stops the progression or it slows down the progression. So you're like, okay, well, of course I want to slow down the progression, but what are the side effects? And so you go through this whole process of research. Now I'm a reader, so I took my time in making my decision, but I very quickly worked out that on social media, there's two big hype groups, one that's totally against medication and one that's for. Not many that have an integrated approach, right? So why can't you do both? I don't know why, but a lot of people choose not to. So the people who aren't on medication are like, this is, poison. It's the pharmaceutical industry, rah, 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 all of that. And then you have the people who are on medication saying that people who are focusing on nutrition and lifestyle are deluded and crazy. So I definitely went through this kind of like, well, I don't like if I do focus on lifestyle and nutrition, which was where I was sort of, the pull was there, not really the medication. But then if I don't know enough about the disease and I don't know enough about how it will progress, am I making the right decision by not taking the medication? So I made the decision to take the medication. And I thought to myself, I'm going to try it once. If I have any reactions to it, that's my sign to stop. And it went well. So I've continued with that, but I work in parallel with a doctor who I trust a lot here in Dubai, who's made a big difference to my life. And she focuses a lot on my lifestyle and nutrition. And then of course, adding workout and gym to that, I feel like it's almost like a puzzle. With different pieces, and you need to have them all in place to be able to combat this disease, because it's tough.
Is it progressing?
So this is the question that doctors can't answer. So if you ask a doctor, I'm going to get hate from neurologists on this. If you ask a doctor...
I've called many doctors out on this show.
Okay.
Sammia, don't worry.
Fine. If you ask a doctor what's sort of defined as progression in MS, right? They'll say, well, it's the number of lesions. Yep. Lesions are the white spots that you have on your brain and spine, which is the damage caused, right? When you have an attack and you say, okay, number of lesions. What else? Symptoms, right? So, and the symptoms can vary with MS, whether it's because it's a disease that affects the central nervous system. It can be any part of your body. Okay, symptoms, lesions, anything else? No, pretty much that's it. So you have your MRI. So if I have my regular MRI once a year and I have no new lesions, no progression in terms of where I started and where I am today, and I have no visible symptoms where I feel like I'm deteriorating or losing my mobility, does that mean I'm in remission? Or does that mean I'm doing well? Well, they'll always say no. And they'll say, no, there's no such thing as remission. There's no such thing as getting better. You're just not getting worse. Okay, well, am I progressing then if I don't have symptoms and if I don't have new lesions? But that question is always it's vague. The answer's vague. So on paper, I'm not. Like you said, I've had it for 5 years now. I haven't had any progression in terms of my MRI results. I'm doing pretty well, but I work really hard. Really hard.
In what way? What's the hardest thing with it?
Discipline. Discipline.
As far as what?
My life, it makes it sound like it's miserable, but it's no different to, I suppose, an athlete or somebody who's serious about health. If you're committed to a goal in the gym, or you're committed to, as an athlete, to, you want to perform at a certain level or win a medal, or your life becomes pretty structured. Your day-to-day life, what you eat, what time you go to bed, how much water you drink, whether you take your supplements, the people you surround yourself with, all of these things, you become conscious and you start, thinking about your daily habits and what you're doing from day to day. Prior to this, I was the same as probably the average person who would grab a coffee, go to work, live in chaos, eat one croissant in the morning, not eat anything for the rest of the day, not think about anything else. I've never sat there and thought, is my vitamin D at the right level? Or is my, am I having enough magnesium in my diet? And these are things that I just never would have done. And unfortunately, I feel like we look after ourselves and pay attention more once we've had that hit and a bit of bad news and we're scared, then all of a sudden we want to be disciplined.
Why do you think that is?
Fear. It's just fear.
But why don't we do it before?
It's just never going to happen, Marcus. It's just, I've asked myself this question. We're lazy and we take things for granted. We take things for granted. Am I ever going to wake up in the morning going, oh, amazing, my legs are working today. I'm so, I'm so grateful that I can get out of bed. And, we don't do that as human beings.
But why not?
I don't know. Honestly.
Because if we did, we could be different. Things could be different, couldn't they?
Imagine. Well, you'd prevent any health issues, right? You'd prevent a lot of disease.
I think you'd prevent a lot of disease, yeah.
If you took care of yourself. I'm not saying that all disease is, it's just caused by lifestyle only.
But, the research is quite clear that a large percentage of, you look at what kills most people at the moment, heart disease, diabetes.
Yeah.
Sorry, but it's all related to all the things that you've pulled up: environment, food, and lifestyle habits. Like it's crazy. It's funny because it's funny you say that about your legs, because I did a show recently and I have this really weird ritual first thing in the morning that I literally, and it takes, I don't know when, I cannot tell you when I started doing it, so there was no real catalyst. But as soon as I put my feet on the floor when I get out of the bed, I scan I don't do what you said and go, oh, thank fuck, my legs are working
legs.
today.
Thank you.
But I'm like, how do I feel? And it's my first port of call. And I can remember doing it for a number of years now.
Yeah.
And not that I'm doing stuff right, but I'm always, I don't know, maybe I watched something when I was younger and someone's legs stopped working and it's just this image. But
you're just aware.
It's an awareness.
You're just aware, and I'm not, I don't want to say, oh, we should all sit here and have gratitude and think, no, I don't mean that, but I think definitely my diagnosis anyway was a blessing for me, a huge blessing, because I wouldn't be living the way that I am.
Were you living badly before?
No, but I was maybe too much of a people pleaser. Doing all the right things, being the eldest.
Hours here. This is amazing. You give me like perfect segues left and right.
I'm just helping you out here.
Big time.
Trigger words. Too much of a people pleaser, and I think obviously that comes from being the eldest as well. You know, make sure this person's okay. Make sure do this right. Don't let that person down. Do this, and I think that I just did way too much of that. you know,
really?
And now it's almost like the MS has given me an excuse, because I can just go, sorry guys, I'm not doing that.
Did you know at the time you were doing that?
Yeah, I was exhausted.
Were you?
Yeah.
And you didn't think to make a change?
No, because again, we don't make changes until we sort of really reach rock bottom, or we have to change. But I think, especially, after the situation in Libya, I think there was a lot of pressure after things happened in Libya and things like that. So I took over a lot of things in my family, and, my role in the family changed a little bit. And, it had a big impact on my life. And then from there, I think I've just always been that person that tries to please everyone and make sure everyone's happy and stuff. And I just, now I'm the opposite. Blunt, horrific.
But you're probably happier. And if I was one of the receiving people, I'm also happier. Because you were doing stuff because you felt you had to, and it's stressing you out. And I was the only benefactor. You were developing a disease inside by trying to make me happy.
Yeah.
But now you've stopped. I have to be happier.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It feels so freeing and liberating to just say no, just say, actually, no, I'm not coming to this, whatever it is, forced fun situation that you want me to be in tonight or this evening, or no, I'm too tired to do this, or I have too much on to do that for you today. And it just feels a sense of freedom, just to be able to say things how they are and just say no to people.
I wonder if you'd have come to this without MS.
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah, definitely.
Really?
Yeah. And again, it's like that is the maybe the Arab side of my upbringing, is always trying to, don't upset this person, don't say that, go see that lady, it'll make her happy, don't forget it's this person's wedding, so you need to show up, you need to go. So there's always that, you have to keep showing up and keeping your life private at the same time. So you can't say, oh, I'm going through too much today, so I can't show up and be that person for you. So I think I learned that definitely from my Arab side more than English. But I think the MS has definitely been a blessing in that area for me.
So for all these years of your life, you've worn that facade, if you want, and you've lived that Arab side.
Yeah.
But now you've been given this opportunity to and to maybe share, to educate, to inspire, and to go against what you're perhaps comfortable with, and to share and go against sort of a lot of cultural and societal norms, be it from Libya, be it from the Middle Eastern, like the UAE region, of sharing illness. It's just generally not done, and that's probably a whole other show on its own.
Correct.
But you're on the cusp now of wanting, or 20 minutes ago you were, on the cusp of wanting to share your story to help other people.
Yep.
What does that look like?
I'm in a bit of a battle with it, to be honest. Because when I sort of went on this experience journey, whatever you want to call it, and I learned a lot from reading, I was desperate to share that information with other people that had MS. I was like, oh, this is great. And this is, if you do this, this will help. And I wanted to share all of these tips because I actually feel like I'm reversing my diagnosis. But that's a big thing for me to say to a community who maybe don't see that as a possibility, right? So it's a bit of a lonely journey because you feel like that crazy person in the corner who says, oh, I'm quite confident that I can live well with MS. And they're like, really? So I was desperate to share. I wanted to share this knowledge, and I had this image of creating so much impact and meeting people with MS and going, I know how to help you, and read this book, and I could help you with who you should see, what you should do, and so I went to a couple of MS talks, And they were like community organized events, people with MS in the UAE. And that was very educational for me. And I sat there and thought, ooh, I don't like this. This is uncomfortable. Wow. And I thought it would be the complete opposite, because I thought I'm going to go in there and feel really empowered, and I'm going to be like, yeah, I'm going to start my social media page and I'm going to help people. And instead I felt really quite depressed. When I came away from the talk, I felt quite lonely in my mindset and what I was doing in comparison to everybody else and how they were coping with their MS. So I felt like I didn't belong. You know, I was like, okay, I'm not really part of that community, because the way I'm thinking is completely different to some of the patients who were there. I also realized that many of the MS patients who were at this talk sort of were suffering in silence and hadn't even shared with their families that they have MS, which for me, I just was really difficult, to understand. So after 2 or 3 times, I was like, well, I was totally wrong. That wasn't the right platform for me, and that wasn't the right place. And I ended up feeling like, you know, I should just be a bit quiet and not say too much about how I'm managing my MS. Up until now, because I now feel that I'm doing something that's so much bigger than anything I've done in terms of challenge. And I'm training for the London Marathon. And I would feel really selfish if I didn't share my journey with people from the MS community, basically, just to give some hope. I would have loved to have found somebody when I was first diagnosed. I would love to see someone training for a London Marathon, or a marathon, I should say. When I was newly diagnosed, I would have been like, well, she's doing it, so I can definitely overcome this disease, or I definitely can still train. Because one of my biggest fears when I got diagnosed was not being able to work out. Right. And the gym for me is a place of, like, you know, happiness. I love being in the gym. And so I was like, well, what if I can't work out anymore? And, you know, what if I can't do this? And what if I can't do that? So I desperately wanted that hope. So then I think if I found someone who was doing something like running a marathon or training in the gym or whatever they might be doing, it seems unfair for me not to share that. You know, it seems really unfair.
It's interesting because I'm seeing 2 different behavioral patterns.
That's what happens when you're half-half.
This is exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
And this is
conflicting personality.
It's complete conflict in with the greatest respect.
Yeah, of course.
But it's complete conflict. It's against the first 30 minutes of our conversation about how you went on the bike, about how you let people throw stones at you for Halloween, about how you went to the school and you didn't fit in, but then it all worked. But it's the other side of you, which is the amazing thing of being from 2 different cultures. And as we've said, in the Middle Eastern Arab culture, in a number of cultures, let's not try and put this in a hole or put this in a box as well. Yeah. In a number of cultures, being sick is taboo. Yeah. But you went into school in the UK, chest high, shoulders back, but you go into an MS meeting here and you withdraw in this weird way. You've obviously thought about this.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. That's why I said I'm kind of having this battle in my mind of, like, well, which way am I going to go? You know, like, am I just going to be like, right, okay, I'm just going to go on my own journey and not share this and do the whichever side this is and just keep it to myself? Or am I going to go with that 10-year-old girl who was on the bike and having the stones thrown at her?
What does your heart say?
I think I'm leaning more towards the 10-year-old. Yeah. I have to, because I have to do this. Yeah. You know, I don't even feel like it's an option. I don't feel like it's an option. I just have to be more comfortable in sharing my life and my experience with strangers, or even people I know, not just strangers, even people I know. Yeah.
It's so weird because I have two things in my mind. The final stage of grief is acceptance. But one of the things that there's a book where the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu sit down, it's called the Book of Joy. And the first thing that they speak about to create everlasting joy is acceptance. And in everything you're at the fifth stage of grief, and you're at the first rule of Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama. Like, you have so much acceptance and so much passion and power that sharing this could be... Is this the first time you've spoken about it on a public platform?
This is the first time I've been on a public platform ever, Marcus. Yes. So consider yourself lucky, but
I do.
I'll give Arij a special shout out here.
Yeah, we haven't even spoken about Arij. She'll be furious.
Yeah, she'll be furious. Where was my mention?
Now I had to say my name.
Yeah,
Arij,
but
I love you very much, Arij. She always listens.
Today was my first step, basically. This is huge for me to talk, to open up, to talk about my family, my experience, my background, you know, but
I feel so honored.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you for inviting me here.
You know what's absolutely ironic is Arij found the gym because of the podcast.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. One of her friends somehow shared the podcast with her, and she's like, for some reason, I was talking and she's like, I like what this idiot's saying. And she came and knocked on the door.
Wow, so I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's just made me...
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Arij, you see, the reason Arij and I connect is because I'm sure we have a lot of similarities in how we grew up and what we went through and the resilience and being a rebel and stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, I have so many good and stories about Arij that I'm insanely proud of.
Yeah, she's incredible.
She is.
Yeah, she's really an inspiration.
Yeah, she is. And I'm going to share one. It was quite funny because when she first came to the gym, we used to have like this beginner's class, and she was very comfortable to go to it. And I was teaching it one day, and she came up to me. She said, yeah, this is all right, but you know, like next week I'm going to be in the like normal class. And I just taught her, and she was not ready for that class. Yeah. Let's put it that way. And I think she knew it, and I don't think she'll mind me saying this, but I was like, hey, you'll actually be just fine down there. Because we taught the beginners upstairs, and it was almost, we weren't keeping them away, and then we were looking over the thing. She said, I'll be down there next week. I was like, this is an amazing confidence. And my gut reaction was to go, hang on, mate.
You were like, oh no.
But I was just like, you know what?
Yeah.
You'll be absolutely fine. And you both have a very stern confidence, which I think is which is amazing. I've taken an hour of your time. We have to do more. We have to get you back. We have to help you however we can, whenever you're ready for sharing the journey. We could have gone in a number of different ways. There's so many different points of acceptance from social media, acceptance culturally, but we're here, and I'd love to get you back in whenever you're ready, because I think,
when I'm famous, Marcus.
I mean, that's it.
I'll be like, sorry, I'm too busy. I have too many interviews.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, actually, this thing's really taken off. And I mean, we didn't even get into what you do for a living and all these exciting things. But it's been, I think, in the hour that we've spoken, I've learned a whole heap. I'm sure a lot of people have, and I really appreciate you, Sammia. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.